Hi, welcome to Issues and Insights. I am Melanie Parker. With me today we have Murray Warner, the planning official. I have to look because that's a tough one. That's an important role of the City of Radcliffe. Welcome, Murray. We're glad to have you.
Thank you for having me.
So you are a census guy.
Yes, it's kind of other duties as assigned with my job title.
Sure.
So
That's pretty broad. It's pretty broad.
It falls under the umbrella of responsibilities.
Sure. So 2020 is a census year.
Yes.
And how often do they take the census?
The census is taken every 10 years.
10
it's
years.
mandated by the federal government.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know exactly what the census is.
No, and I am one of them. So we all have general information. We always read the information on the back side. But tell us basically what the census is and what we can expect.
Well, the census, if you're not familiar, is a population count for the entire United States.
Wow.
And it's done every 10 years. And the last census that was done was in 2010. Previous to that, 2000, so every decade. 2020 being the most recent one that's being undertaken.
Sure.
It's a complete count of the population, and they'll count the national population, they'll count county populations, city populations, and then they'll go down to census tracts and blocks.
Wow.
Down to individual
Very minute.
Yes, down to individual housing units.
Okay.
So it's very extensive, takes in characteristics. The questionnaire will ask things like age, gender, race, household composition, as in how many people are living in the household, how those people are related to each other, that type of thing.
Interesting. And outside of population, before we talked about economic. Do they ask those kind of questions still, or?
From what I could see, the sample survey that I looked at, I did not notice any of those questions, but they do economic surveys that are incorporated as part of the data.
Okay.
So there's actually, if you Google, it's called American Fact Finder, and you can enter any place, being a city or county in the United States, and pull up a whole range of data.
Wow.
They've got data sets on demographics, which is your age, gender, those types of things. They also have economic characteristics, social characteristics, as in like race and ethnicity, economics, industrial information. So the data that is created by the census is very extensive.
It sounds like it. So when did it start? Give me some history, some background about the census. That's interesting.
Okay, the first U.S. Census was actually directed by Thomas Jefferson in 1790.
I had no idea it went back that far. Wow.
Yes, and back in 1840, the Census Act actually authorized the establishment of a centralized census office.
So at that point, what was the purpose of the census? What did they feel they could glean from that information?
Well, the actual initial purpose was to count every person once and only once and in the right place.
Gotcha.
And they wanted to get an accurate population count of the national population.
Sure, and that just continued, and that's good information. When we talk about information, if I am putting all of what I feel is pertinent to me, personal stuff, is that safe? Is that safeguarded information?
Those responses are confidential.
Good.
And they will not even be shared with other governmental agencies.
Right.
So the Census Bureau highly protects your responses.
Okay, good. As an individual. And so
yes.
you're basically just looking at the information as a whole.
Exactly.
Gotcha. And I'm sure there are a lot of organizations that use that information.
Oh, yes. Part of the basic purpose of the census is for public use.
Gotcha.
And I guess one example would be businesses. Businesses use the census to determine where factories are built, where stores might be built.
I didn't even think about that aspect of it.
Offices.
Yes.
Obviously, in areas that are growing, a lot of times there's going to be more focus on directing growth and development to those areas
Right.
for
So
continued growth.
It's really good for economic growth in a specific area. Like I know the baby boomers are the biggest demographic we have right now. So you'll see more health officials, I'm sure, of health organizations and businesses going into areas that have a more seasoned population.
Yes.
So that makes sense.
There's that aspect. And then as well, in terms of housing,
Right.
Real estate developers will look at the census data to determine where new housing starts should
And
be
schools?
established. Schools,
Right.
yes.
Okay.
Hospitals, roads. The total funding that's appropriate, well, part of the reason the census is actually conducted is to reapportion seats in the U.S. House of Representatives,
Oh, wow.
which is based off population. So it determines how many seats each state receives.
Gotcha.
Also, congressional legislative districts are redrawn as a result of these population shifts. So that is how those changes come into play as well in terms of funding. There's a distribution of $675 billion of federal funds in grants that support states and counties and communities that are based off census data.
Wow.
And of course, as we were talking, that money is spent on schools,
Yes.
roads, hospitals, public facilities.
Yes.
So-
So it's important that you get your numbers right.
Yes.
Isn't it? That's a huge responsibility. And does that fall on local government?
We do have a role in that.
Right.
And that's pretty extensive because in
Yeah.
terms of the state of Kentucky, we receive $15.8 billion of that $675 billion.
Okay.
And that's annually.
Gotcha.
So that works out in terms of population to approximately $2,000 per person a year.
Wow.
Over 10 years, per 10-year census, that's $20,000 a person per year. A family of 5, you'd be looking at about $10,000. And then over 10 years, you're looking at almost $100,000.
So how do they allocate those funds? What is the purpose of those funds? How are they plugged in locally?
Well, they would be in the form of funds for grants, distribution for maybe road funds, those types of things, like municipal road aid.
Gotcha.
So it's very
That's important stuff.
Yeah, because the population count drives where those funds are going to be allotted.
Sure. Knowing that, we really want to encourage folks to fill this thing out.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that money, you're taking a few minutes to fill this out is helping you with your community with roads and stuff that we all take advantage of and need. So
Yes.
we're a team.
It's very important. There's a key purpose to filling it out.
Sure.
And it's also required by federal law. It is mandated that you fill it out.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. And so what happens if I say, I don't want to?
Well, believe it or not, I did not realize, but there are penalties associated with not completing the census.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
If you don't complete the census, you could actually be fined up to $1,000. And if you provide false or misleading information, you could
Sure.
even be fined up to $5,000.
I can't imagine why anybody would want to give misleading information. But, people do crazy things sometimes.
It's very uncommon that
Right.
people would do that.
Yeah, I
but
hope.
a lot of people do not complete the census.
Right.
It's not 100% reporting. So I believe I did have some numbers. In the 2010 census, the response rate was about 3/4 of the population, 75%.
Right.
And they're projecting about 67% response rate for 2020. So some people will not fill out the complete questionnaire, so that is still incomplete. So they want to get 100% response rate
Sure.
if possible.
Absolutely, because that negligence really is costing your community money.
Yes.
That's a big one for me on the roads. Keeping our roads nice, and we're very blessed here in Hardin County. I always see folks out fixing the roads because that's a lot of traffic. We have a pretty vast population here, and this is a very simple, cost-free way for people to contribute to that.
Absolutely. It's really important because we travel those roads every
Yes.
day.
Yes.
We use schools, hospitals, public facilities.
Yeah.
So to make sure that the dollars go in the correct location, we want to make sure the population's counted, everybody's counted,
Yes.
and all those dollars are channeled to the right places.
Right, and you had mentioned that potential businesses look at those numbers. If you want that favorite restaurant of yours to come to town, or you want another school built for your children or grandchildren to accommodate them, then you need to fill out this census, right?
Oh, for sure.
Sure.
You know, development's driven a lot by your infrastructure.
Right.
And depending on where that infrastructure is located, placed, new roads are built, how often do you see a new road built and then you see a new restaurant or a retail establishment?
Yeah,
you know,
that boutique or whatever, absolutely. That new store, new bank that's more convenient for you, Dollar General,
Yes.
you know, whatever it is, whatever makes our lives easier, it takes, I don't know, how long does it take to fill out the census?
shouldn't take but a few minutes.
A few
really.
minutes is an
Yeah.
investment in your community. That's empowering,
Yeah.
really, for everybody. It truly is. So when can we expect those, and how can we expect them?
Well, we're actually, as far as the schedule for the census, if I could maybe start and talk about how we were involved as a local government.
Please, absolutely.
And then I'll go into when the responses are
yeah,
expected.
and we'll just let it trickle down. There you
Yeah.
go. Tell us all about that.
So this actually began, believe it or not, back in January of 2017.
Okay.
And the Census Bureau contacted local governments. They'd contact the highest elected official in cities, for example, our mayor, in the case of the county, the judge executive.
Okay.
And they sent out a directive saying, hey, we're going to begin the census process 3 years in
They
advance.
gave you plenty of heads up. It takes that long for the process, really?
Well, they send out
Wow.
the first step is called LUCA, the Local Update of Census Addresses.
Wow.
And they have a list of all the houses in your jurisdiction. And they actually send that out February and April of 2018. So from January 2017 to 2018, we were going through training, given a background, those types of things.
So you say we. Are you a part of a team?
Well, each jurisdiction was responsible for their own address list.
Gotcha.
And we had to verify that address list, which was supposed to be comprehensive and contain every single housing unit in each jurisdiction.
That's got to be a challenge in Hardin County because we are always growing. Oh my gosh. You probably have to update that like every 3 months.
Well, we had to use local sources against their address list
Sure.
to see if there was any corrections, and we had to correct their list.
Ongoing, I'm
So Hardin
sure.
County 911 were lucky enough to have their database, which they go out and they GPS every housing unit in the county, and they have a physical point on a mapping system with a database, a spreadsheet associated with all those houses.
I had no idea they were that advanced. That's
Yes.
phenomenal. Good to know.
So we check all those, and then we updated the census address list.
Okay.
And that was our only time that we could actually make a change to the list.
Sure. Teamwork. I like it. Very
Now,
good.
in 2019, we had a chance to appeal the results
Oh,
from July through September 2019. It's called a LUCA appeal. So if they would either accept some of our changes to their address list or not accept them, and then we could appeal it. So that was a second step in our process.
wow.
And then in September of 2019, the new construction program began, and we had to account for any housing units from March 1st of 2018 and beyond that were not a part of that original address list. So we had to go through our building permits program where we track all those houses.
Wow.
We had to add all residential units into the list that weren't there.
It's a lot of participation and teamwork among local organizations.
It is.
Yeah.
We did a lot of work with the census, and
Sure.
I think it was really rewarding because we had local input.
Yeah.
So if we saw something that was missing or there was a mistake, you know, in some cases you might have a huge block of houses that were in another jurisdiction. For example, in Radcliffe, we might have had a block of houses in Vine Grove that were
There's
in
some
our
blurred
address
lines in
list.
Hardin County.
Yeah, so everyone had to check each other's work and determine where these houses were supposed to go.
It's like a big jigsaw puzzle.
Yes.
And if you like those kind of challenges and you like numbers and all of that, you seem to like what you do, you're that guy, that's wonderful. That's really good.
It was really interesting.
Yeah.
A little overwhelming at first because
I bet.
you had to kind of come up with a plan. You know, what local sources of information were you going to use that were accurate?
So is there like a census school you had to go to?
No.
You just
the
they
training.
just plug you in.
Yeah, you take a few classes where someone from the Census Bureau would come down.
That's helpful.
Yeah, one time a lady came down from Philadelphia,
Nice.
Pennsylvania, and
Good.
she put on a seminar one day, so a couple
Helpful.
hours, yeah.
Ooh, a couple hours though for all of this. That's wow. So do you have a go-to person if you all and your team have questions? Because every 10 years, you know, people age out and then you've got fresh new people coming in, which is great, but then you've got to retrain a whole new set of people.
Well, the cities and counties are actually responsible for undertaking those census activities.
Gotcha.
You do have the option of essentially opting out in the sense that you're not going to update the list.
Okay. Does that mean you don't get money?
Well, no, you would just take the census's address list as is.
Okay.
So you wouldn't make
Gotcha.
any potential changes.
Sure.
But the problem with doing that is if there's any inconsistencies, any information incorrect, then you just have to accept it.
And you're leaving money on the table.
Well, they could potentially have housing units that they don't know about, especially with new construction.
Right.
And you don't want to miss out on that funding.
No, of course not. Of course not. And so, like, let's say you miss a new build, and it's a complex of 10 families in there. Would they be responsible and penalized if they did not complete the census? If they were not included? That's kind of gray, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's hard to say.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
The census would do their best job to account for any new construction.
Sure.
And they're going to try and include all those areas. But if somebody or a certain housing unit or development was missed, then I do feel that it's partially the local jurisdiction's responsibility to try to work with the Census Bureau to make sure everybody's accounted for.
Well, I appreciate the local high standards to where you all are not just accepting your list and not putting in the work and the effort and, feet on the ground getting it done. It's a lot of work, like you said, but it'll be worth it to our community.
We've had very successful results out of it because we did file an appeal and, made sure that all the housing units were accounted for.
Good.
So I'm sure a lot of communities did. It was just like a multi-step process we went through and just trying to make sure everybody was counted. Coming up, there are some key dates too, 2020 going forward with the census that I kind of wanted to mention.
Absolutely. Throw them out there. We need to know.
Okay, so the public can begin responding to the census in March of this year.
How do they receive it? Do they in the mail?
Believe it or not, a lot of it used to be done through mailings through the phone. Well, they're trying to get as many responses as possible online on their website.
Okay.
And that website is 2020census.gov.
Okay.
So they want to get as many people responding online as possible because it just simplifies the process for everyone.
Oh, certainly. Make a spreadsheet. It's just easier. It really is.
But you can respond by phone or mail as well.
Gotcha. Because there are seasoned folks who just feel more comfortable doing it that way.
Yes. If you don't have internet access, not everybody does. So, or it may not be convenient for people.
Right.
Now, you may even be able to go to a local library and access the web to respond. So those are options as well.
Hardin County Library has a great bank of computers there. Yep.
Yes. Also, April 1st, 2020 is National Census Day. It's recognized as such.
I did not know that. Good to know. Okay.
And then in June and July of this year, if they don't hear from you, if you haven't responded by the internet, phone or email or mail, they're going to have census takers come out and go door to door looking for you, trying to get those responses.
We've heard of the census takers over the years. In my lifetime, I've heard about those. Wow, and you know what, folks, be nice to them, right?
Yes, they have to show ID that they're a federal employee of the U.S. Census Bureau.
That's kind of a dangerous job, bless them. So be polite, be kind.
Yes.
Know they're doing their job, and it's necessary.
It is.
It really is necessary, because I always thought the census was optional and didn't really want to be bothered, didn't want to take the time. I am so glad we're doing this, because not only do I now know that there are penalties involved, but now I know where the money's going, why it's being done, what's being done with the information, and that makes a huge difference in my attitude towards the census.
Well, the other thing, a lot of these people working for the Census Bureau, like we were talking about the census takers, they're looking to hire people for these temporary positions to assist with these tasks. And right now, Hardin County is one of the most underserved in the state of Kentucky.
Really?
Out of 120 counties, we need people. They're pretty good paying jobs. I believe the base is a little over $15 an hour.
Wow.
For the base. So it's starting at that and going up. But if you go to the Census Bureau's website, they'll have applications you can fill out on their website. So they really need people to help out with that.
Wonderful.
Locally.
Right. So what do? They just give you a list, visit these addresses and that type of thing?
There's census takers that'll go door to door, but there's also managerial positions that will basically oversee all the enumerators.
Wow.
They're trying to put out information like brochures in businesses, signs, but they're just trying to get the word out so people are aware that, hey, it's coming up.
Sure.
It's essentially a one-time opportunity every 10 years, and that you need to respond to it.
Right. And it's just all of us working together. It's not something to avoid the way I think has been the general consensus in the past. I don't want to mess with it. Now we know it's something, it empowers us. We all need to work together, because ultimately it's paying into our community.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's going to help your community by responding.
Really?
So being proactive and wanting to see the best for your community. If you want that new restaurant or that new shop or a new business that employs people and provides jobs to be built in your backyard, well, it benefits you to respond.
Yes.
So you don't want to see it built down the road 30, 40, 50 miles away when it could be 5 to 10 minutes away. And you could be going to a new business and working there, providing a job.
Right.
So
you see on social media people complain about a pothole, or they complain, and usually to the wrong people, and complain about, well, why don't we have this restaurant? I'd like to see this come in. This is where people can get involved and make a difference.
Yes, and we actually have a committee that was formed. It's a Census Complete Count Committee.
Wow.
And it involves a lot of the local government from the local area, county, city of Radcliffe, city of Elizabethtown, city of Vine Grove, and several partners, Hardin County Schools, and we're trying to count hard-to-count populations.
Gotcha.
And the hardest or least counted populations are actually children below the age of 5. The second most is 5 to 9 years old.
Really?
And then also veterans are undercounted, with Fort Knox being close by. That's really important that we get those people counted.
Right.
Seniors, college students. So we've been trying to put out social media awareness, public service announcements, those types of things, just to get people counted.
Absolutely. So if I work at a local business, so if I wanted to share information with my clients as they come in, or I wanted to put out brochures, those types of things, do you have those printed that I can pick up, or can I go to the website and print them out myself?
You could print them yourself.
Okay.
They have a whole set of different documents you could print. We could potentially provide some documents as well. I know the county talked about doing that, Hardin County government. So, those information
So that
brochures.
website's up and running.
Yeah, and those
Okay.
pieces of information are out there.
All right.
There's videos
Good.
that you can check out. Even musical artists have been on there doing
Really?
partnerships with the
Cool.
Census. Yeah, trying
Good.
to promote it. So,
Awesome. It's important.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I'm afraid we're out of time.
All right.
This was good. Do you feel like we shared everything you wanted to get out there?
Yeah, I
Yeah?
do.
Okay, good.
The only other thing is that the available census data won't be available till 2021.
Okay.
So
Good to know.
by the end of 2020, all the information has to go to the President of the United States, and they're going to show how the seats were apportioned in the House, and that's the deadline. But the actual census for 2020 is not released till 2021.
Gotcha.
So that's pretty much the closure of the whole
Probably
thing.
takes that long to pull all the numbers together and
Yeah.
yeah.
Again, people, I don't think they really realize how much is involved, because the whole process started at the beginning of 2017, and the data won't be available until 2021. So you're talking several years, and some people might say, well, why don't we do a census every 2 years?
Right, and that's a valid question, but it's a lot.
It takes so long
It
to produce
does.
this information and try to reach everybody nationwide,
Right.
that they do it every 10 years. So,
Well, wonderful. Marie, thank you so much for the information. I have learned
Thank you.
so much. I've just never thought about it, to be completely honest. It's just one of those things that's just there, but you don't really think about the work that goes into it. 3 years of prep work, that is mind-blowing, honestly. And it's very interesting to know why they're doing it, where that information goes, what you do with the information, and how it benefits us locally all the way up to the government. That is fascinating. Thank you so much. And I'm assuming that if anybody has any questions, they could probably get contact information on the website for local
they could
folks?
call us
Okay.
directly at City Hall. Our Facebook has information on it on our Facebook page.
Okay, is it the City of Radcliffe Facebook page, or does the Census have their own?
The City of Radcliffe. Now, you can go there for some information, but if you really want extensive information, you can go to the Census webpage.
Gotcha, which is
2020census.gov.
.gov. Gotcha. That .gov is going to get me, but we'll plug that in. Okay. Thank you all so much for joining us. I hope you found some really good information, and if you have any questions, you now know where to go, 2020census.gov.
Yes.
And just remember that you count. Make it count. Have a great day. Thank you.